Hello there, this is Rajeswari Ramani. Welcome to Asian Agribiz podcast. Today, my colleague Arif Fakhruddin is speaking to Fernando Carrasquer, Global Technical Service and Veterinary Specialist at H&N International, about the health challenges to consider when switching to cage-free egg production.
Hello, Fernando.
Hello.
Welcome to Asian Agribiz podcast.
Thank you so much.
The very nature of cage-free egg production, which sees birds having greater access to litter, means there are increased health challenges. So for our audience who are layer farmers that are considering switching to cage-free egg production systems, what kind of viral, bacterial, and parasitical diseases that they must be prepared for?
Good point. Yes, diseases coming from bacteria, virus, and parasites are a problem on these problems, but think also in the management problems, okay? So let's go step by step. Okay, you are right. We have new pathologies in cage-free that are not existing in traditional cage system. We have also diseases that are existing in traditional cage but have a different intensity, okay, in cage-free systems. And they are coming from different features, okay. For example, one of the points is that in cage-free systems, the birds have access to litter, okay? And on these conditions, many intestinal parasites can close their biological cycle, so they can reproduce and by doing this produce pathology, okay? And I want to highlight two intestinal parasites. One is coccidia, and the other is worms, okay? Coccidia has been a big problem, or is nowadays a big problem for broiler industry. Also, we have some problems in cage production, but in cage-free production is one of the main pathologies that we will find, okay? The good point here is that we can easily solve by using vaccines, okay? Vaccines against coccidia. These vaccines work very, very, very well, but are not easy to administer, okay? Normally, we are administering these vaccines at hatchery, but during the first 2-3 weeks of life of the birds, we need to correctly manage the flock for allowing coccidia to make several cycles, okay? And by doing these cycles, we'll have immunity against coccidia. So my point is, for coccidia, we have vaccines are working very well, but we need to use them correctly, okay? For worms, I will speak mainly about rockworms, and especially Ascaridia and other rockworms, okay? Well, we have also a long experience with these parasites in other types of production, and the control should be a chemical control, okay? We need to give different, I would say, treatments against these parasites during the production cycle of the birds. And if we have a good strategy, okay, we can also have a good control of that. The problem is when people, is not using the chemical control, I will say, with a correct, in the correct time, and the population of these worms are growing under out of control, and then yes, we can see problems in the birds that lose weight, and they can have drops in production. So that's another thing that we don't have in traditional cage, and we need to pay attention in a cage-free. Moreover, okay, and it's are not related to bacteria or virus, but are also big issues for cage-free systems, I need to speak about behavior issues, okay? Because cannibalism can be a big issue in cage-free systems, especially when flock management is not correctly done. And also another problem that we have in cage-free, and it's a big one, is piling. Okay, when your birds are clustering together in a part of the house and they are dying by suffocation. That's a really big issue in cage-free. Okay, and we have different types of piling. Okay, we have piling because a panic reaction. Okay, when I don't know, there is a someone entering in the house, or big noise, you know, there is producing a panic reaction, the birds, and they go to the corner, and then you have suffocation in this corner. Okay, that is one that's easy to solve because it's about flock management. Okay, other kind of piling that we have is very common is nest piling. Okay, when we are not managing correctly the nest in the flock, and we have I will say a lot of hens that are using the same nest, and they are dying by suffocation by piling in this nest. Okay, again, it can be solved by a correct flock management, and in this case, a correct nest management. Okay, and additionally, we have reiterative piling. That is more complicated because we don't understand completely why that is happening. But you know, the thing is, we have piling of, I mean, but not big piling, but just a few number of birds that are clustering in a part of the house. Normally, it doesn't. It's not the corner of the nest, but you know, somewhere in the nest. Somewhere in the house. And by clustering in this part of the house, you have 2, 3, 4, 5 dead birds by suffocation. Okay, that's maybe it's not a big issue, but the problem is 2 days after you have the same event in another part of the house, and 4 or 5 days later again and again, and it's not easy to understand why birds are behaving like that. Okay, but at the end of the day, it can be you have a cumulative mortality that can be very high due to this behavior. So that's piling is also I would say a challenge in cage-free production. Also, for sure, I need to mention other diseases, okay, as spotty liver, especially for free-range production. That's especially in some countries, as Australia, has been really a big challenge. Brachyspida is also been a challenge in some countries, okay. And also, I need to mention other non-infection issues as keel bone fracture. Okay, we know that we have been reported that in some countries we have problems with fractures in the keel bone. That is painful for the birds that can affect even to production. And again, it's not easy to know what is behind. There is a lot of research right now in Europe about this problem. And at the beginning, we thought that it was related to accidents, okay, that the birds were having where they were flying from one part to another part of the house. Right now, we think that it's also related with the calcium use of the hens and how they are using the calcium in the bones. Okay, so again, one issue that have different implication is not easy to solve. Okay, so as I say at the beginning, the problem in cage-free is we have same pathology that in traditional cage, plus some issues that are, I would say, they have high incidence as cannibalism or others. Okay, and we have all the intestinal parasites that come back to become a issue, and also we have new diseases as spotty liver and brachyspira. So the point is, if you are doing well the things, more or less you can have under control mortality in your farm, but you really need to do extra effort, okay, if you compare with a traditional cage.
What are your recommendations in preventing the diseases you just explained?
Well, I think we have, for controlling disease, we have two main pillars, okay? One is biosecurity, the other is immunity, okay? Biosecurity is the point we need to focus, okay? And when I'm speaking about biosecurity, I'm speaking about real biosecurity, not make-up biosecurity, okay? So it means that if we really want to, avoid the risk or reduce the risk of the introduction of diseases in our farms, we really need to focus on biosecurity. And that means that companies need to make a lot of changes, okay? Because biosecurity is not just about disinfectants, but about training our people, about following rules, about logistics, okay? Logistics, for example, field logistics is very important in biosecurity. So we really need to make deep changes in the way we are working in companies, okay, and in farms. But that's crucial, okay, because we know well that biosecurity is probably the most important point in our health program. So we really need to focus on that. Later, okay, we will need birds having a good immunity, okay, because we have diseases that, well, we cannot avoid by biosecurity. And in case we have a break in biosecurity, we want our birds to have a good immunity, okay? And for good immunity, we need to start from the beginning, okay? We need to rear the birds correctly, and we need to allow the immune system to develop correctly during the rearing period. And later on, we need to avoid immunosuppressive factors, okay? And for sure, I'm speaking about diseases as Gumboro disease or Marek disease, okay? And for sure, I'm speaking about chemical immunosuppressive. Mainly, I'm speaking about mycotoxins, but also I'm speaking about other factors that can be immunosuppressive, okay? As stress, okay? And for production birds, most of the stress is coming for wrong flock management, okay? So that's another part that we need to keep in mind. And that's especially important for cage-free, okay? Because flock management is more complicated in cage-free than in traditional cage. So it's very easy to make mistakes. And for these mistakes, we'll have effects on production for sure, but also in immunity. Okay, for sure, when we have a good immunity, we want to adapt this immunity to the challenge that our birds will have in the field. Okay, and the smarter way of doing this is vaccination. So for sure, we need also a well-adapted vaccine program to our conditions or to the challenge that we have in the field. And as I said, the biggest difference between cage-free and traditional cage is a coccidia vaccine. That's very important. Remember that coccidia also have an immunosuppressive effect, okay? So also it can affect in a very negative way to immunity, but depending of, the challenge that we have in our farm, we will need to use other vaccines. For example, in the countries of the north of Europe, they need to vaccine against erysipelas, okay? The cage-free birds, okay? Because normally they have challenge because the fact of they have swine farms very close to their production sites. But it will depend on your country, on the location of your farm, and other factors. But the point for have a good health in our birds is good biosecurity, good immunity, and to adapt this immunity to the challenge that we will have in our farm by using a correct vaccination program.
I think that's the end of our podcast.
It was my pleasure to speak with all you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I hope that my points were interesting for you and for your audience.
Thank you for listening to another Asian Agribiz podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you get your podcast from. This is Raj, signing off.